Hey there, I'm Filup Molina, still dressed in my binging blues because I am binge watching Jessica Jones Season 1, and along the way I'm going to give you my thoughts and analysis on the episodes, plus I'm going to point out, a bunch of little details that I think might easily be missed. But let's go ahead and do it. This is a breakdown of Jessica Jones Season 1, Episode 2, Crush Syndrome. Let's explore the concept of what it means to actually be in control. Up first, we always take a look at our opening images, where here we see Jessica using a mirror to take in the room around her. So she's continuing that thing of examining the truth of her surroundings by putting a layer of glass between her and them. But no, she doesn't want to look at herself in that mirror. She doesn't want to see the truth about herself. It's interesting to remember that in the previous episode, we met Jessica through the window of a door, and in this one, it's through the glass of a mirror. Because mirrors always flip reality, and as we can see, she's in a police station being interrogated regarding that murder of Hope's parents, but Jessica's much closer to being a victim in that situation, and yet they're kind of treating her like the flipped version of that, an accomplice or a killer. As the detective gets more pointed with his questions, asking her if she knew that Hope was gonna kill her parents, you can see that he also knows the benefit of looking not directly at someone to see if they're lying, but instead into the glass to make the call about the truth. And throughout this scene, they're both fighting to be the one in control of the narrative and correctly painting what actually happened to Hope and her parents. And did you notice the revelation in this scene that Jessica's been taking even more pictures of Luke than we thought? Either she's the clingy stalker type, or more likely she's got a real reason to be going all PI on him. Then we move on through glass windows and doors, and Jessica seems to come clean about following Luke, but like she already knows, and we find out a little later, she's not coming fully clean at all, which transitions nicely to her feeling like she needs a shower. And then she takes this real look at herself in the mirror where she really judges herself, probably not feeling clean at all. And even if she wanted to be clean, that is not in her power, because when there is a roach just a couple of inches away from an image of herself, then it's impossible for her to feel anything but gross. If you listen to the narration too, you can easily connect that that roach is a representation of Killgrave. Yeah, she wants to feel rid of her disgusting past and her disgusting actions, but there he is, just outside of her view, ready to make everything feel all freaking gross again. Jessica does try to assert some dominance over the roach as she wonders how Killgrave escaped the death she thought she saw him suffer, but just like Killgrave, the roach also cheats death, and we shift over to Jessica trying to squeeze any information at all out of Hope that can help her catch Killgrave. And Jessica kind of gets a taste of her own medicine from that earlier interrogation scene, because now, despite whatever she's trying to make this interview about, Hope has other plans. Hope just wants to talk about Killgrave's obsession with Jessica. Then Hope lashes out at Jessica for not making sure that Killgrave died in that accident, because that was, they both know, the one moment where someone could have had control over him. And then Hope suggests,
"You should kill yourself."
And yeah, that's awkward. She sounds like she's leaving a mean YouTube comment, but I think what she's actually doing there is suggesting the only choice that she thinks is actually within Jessica's control. Oh, also, dude in the background, I know you're trying to help, but yeah, she's not gonna want that thing when you're holding it with a purple glove. Do some research, man. She doesn't like purple. And now, Jess may not be able to get what she wants out of this Killgrave and Hope situation, but she does do everything that is in her power to twist Jerry into taking on Hope's case, even though Jerry thinks it's a loser case. Which, when she says that, I bet you guys, just like me, were like, oh, I know another Hell's Kitchen lawyer that might take on a loser case. Can we see him, please? But maybe later. Then on her way home, our perspective shifts to watching Jessica, and it ends up being just Trish, but this is definitely foreshadowing this idea that somebody else might be out there spying or watching Jessica, which is fun because that's what she does for a living. More taste of her own medicine. Then we see Jessica still hasn't fixed that door, and there's no way to even lock it, they say, so she is still susceptible to being invaded. And Jess also reminds Trish that nobody can be trusted. Anyone could be under Killgrave's mind control. And I love this detail because it means that from here on out in this show, anytime we see anybody on screen, even like an extra in the background, Jessica and us have to both wonder, oh, are they about to kill her? And like the face lick and the weird smile of the last episode, I'm gonna nominate this realization situation here is one of the most unsettling moments of this episode. Jessica then studies the newspaper clipping about the accident that supposedly killed Killgrave, and there are two names that pop out on this article. Reva Connors, who apparently was killed in the same accident, but J. King is short for Jamie King, who is the writer on this show. Then Jessica followed some clues right to Metro General, the same hospital Daredevil's Claire Temple works at. And I was really hoping that Claire would show up at some point, though in the meantime, we do get a few other Easter eggs on the chart. You can see Dr. Bendis, as in Brian Michael Bendis, the creator of Jessica Jones. There's Nurse Panuccio a moment later, which is a reference to the show's prop master. And then there's this really interesting one, actually. It's actually right when they walk in. Two cops are desperate to find some records on Wilson, as in Daredevil's main villain, Wilson Fisk. Connected world is connected. So Jess finds out who was driving the bus, but the audience gets to see a picture of Reva Connors. And if you remember last episode, that's the same woman from the picture in Luke's medicine cabinet. So now you know a little bit more about Luke Cage. This scene also places the Jessica Jones timeline for us because the bus accident was about a year ago and Reva Connors was admitted in January 2014. So that means right now in this show, it's around January 2015, which would put it a few months before the events of Avengers Age of Ultron. Then headed back home, Jessica gets a pretty chilling reminder of how dangerous this situation is when she notices that not all the blood from that elevator murder has been cleaned. And so it's no surprise that, yeah, she's a bit on edge when she accidentally destroys that poor door repair guy's leg. So he was sent by Trish to fix her door, and that's, yeah, a nice gesture, but Trish doesn't realize that taking choices out of Jessica's hands right now is not a good way to mend their friendship. You gotta let Jessica control something right now, she needs it. Then Jessica follows a lead that could lead her to how Killgrave escaped his supposed death, and the PTSD flashbacks are kind of starting to get more frequent, especially when you're surrounded by a bunch of people who could be under Killgrave's control and maybe one of them's gonna kill you. So yeah, it's no surprise that this moment is accompanied by glass shattering as Jessica starts to lose a little bit of her grip on what's real and what's true. And when Jessica finds the guy who drove Killgrave's ambulance and she learns that, oh my god, he stole both the guy's kidneys, and then you combine that with the moment where you think the guy's writing Killgrave, but he's writing Kill Me. Yeah, this is another nominee for most unsettling moment of this episode. It also connects back to that suggestion Hope gave Jessica earlier. This guy's on that same page. Killgrave has already taken everything else away from him. The one thing he can choose is whether or not he lives or dies. But sadly, he actually doesn't even have that amount of control because Jessica's not gonna do it for him. Later, the accidental homewrecker, Luke Cage, gets attacked by the husband of the lady he's been sleeping with. And oh man, was this fight amazing. It's worth watching just for Luke's face the entire time. Because when you can't be damaged, you have no need to block a punch. Like the whole thing is just mildly annoying to you. The best moments include his eye roll and the laziest bitch slap I've ever seen. Bang. Now compare that fighting style to Jessica's, and it's pretty clear which of them has issues with control. Jessica then tracks Killgrave's life-saving surgeon to a college, and while he doesn't trust her at first, he does eventually explain how he saved him, and he also name drops the episode's title when he explains that the accident left Killgrave suffering from crushing syndrome, which apparently refers to a situation where when your skeletal muscle is too badly damaged, your kidneys shut down. Jessica also realizes that because Killgrave wouldn't allow himself to go under during the surgery, then he must be afraid of the chemicals that can interrupt his ability to control minds. And suddenly she has something she's never had before, Killgrave's weakness. Now, because it's so prevalent, like all the time, I'm not gonna point it out every time, but the entire scene here, you can definitely see that there's multiple purple lights in the background and in the distance. I think as Killgrave gets closer to Jessica, we're gonna see more and more of that throughout the season until eventually we're just like totally bathed in purple. Later, Jessica gets a gift to help her complete the door, and it reminds her that she might not want Trish to get involved in fixing Jessica's situation. It still can't be denied that when Trish does help, things do get done. That means she might need her friends to help her regain the control that she's lost. So only when she realizes this does she set up this lunch date with Trish. And as the episode wraps up, we finally meet Killgrave, although we still don't get any direct looks at him, but he mind controls this man and forces him into inviting him into his home. Then he makes the kids lock themselves away and then states that he's got a
very particular palate.
And wields a freaking knife. And yes, I am thoroughly creeped out by all this, but I'm actually more intrigued by the parallels of this moment to one of film history's oldest monsters, Dracula. Keep in mind that vampires also don't enter a home until they're invited in, and they also have a very particular palate. And that knife is kind of confirming, yeah, that palate, it's a thirst for blood. And finally, in some stories about Dracula, he gets a few extra powers over the average vampire, including mind control. You remember Buffy?
Come on, puffy shirt. Pucker on up, because you can kiss your pale ass.
Silence.
Yes, master.
And I gotta say, Killgrave definitely feels like he's building up to being one of the most iconic monsters of all time. I mean, why you gotta step on the little kid's car? Like, I thought you liked purple, man. Now into our closing images. Like our opening, we see Jessica's reflection, but things are a little different this time. Jessica has once again tried to get herself clean, but when our little Killgrave roach guy returns from his grave, her narration reminds us that now that she has the knowledge of Killgrave's weakness, the power dynamic, like the mirror image of Jessica, is flipped, and now she's got the control. She goes from having been under Killgrave's thumb to putting Killgrave, the little roach guy, under her thumb, giving him his second taste of crushing syndrome. And the closing images of the episode's other storyline have Luke coming clean about his powers, and you get this line that she doesn't need to fix him because he's already unbreakable, as you can see by a crazy power saw to the abs moment. Now, this reveal here is a nice callback to the kind of fake intimacy that they tried to have last episode. Because if you think about it, then when Jessica was the one claiming that she couldn't be broken, they're definitely trying to have a connection. But here, in touching where his wound should be, she's actually connecting to him much more in a real way. Also, did anybody else kind of think we were gonna get a Netflix like cross promotion moment when Luke says this line?
You can't fix me. I'm unbreakable.
They alive, damn it. It's a miracle. Unbreakable. They alive, damn it. With females are strong as hell.
Now, some lingering thoughts. I think it's really interesting that Jessica's door, which still represents access to her mind and her safety, it has a temporary block on it, but it very clearly is marked fragile. Like, it's nowhere near sturdy. Also, lots of talk about Trish's mom being a psycho, and clearly she's part of the reason why Trish is making herself get Krav Maga beat. And while Patsy's mom was always pretty crazy in the comics, this all makes you wonder, like, okay, but how crazy are you guys gonna make her? Oh, also with Trish, we know that she eventually becomes Hellcat, who's kind of a badass hero in her own right, but it's really fun that we're getting to see her origin story here too. And finally, I gotta admit, the moments with the kids was bad, the kill me was bad, and there were a lot of nominees for most unsettling moment in this episode, but for me, it was definitely the freaking, the roach crush. With your bare hand, what are you gonna do? You're gonna cut off your thumb now? Ugh. All right, how are you doing? Are you also binging this? Hang in there if you are. Also, let me know what you think so far about the show on Twitter. You can hit me up at Fimo. And also in the comments down below, feel free to discuss everything. Let's just remember to try to keep our discussion to episodes 1 and 2. We don't want anybody who's also binging to get spoiled as they binge. As for me, I am so ready to go right into episode 3. It's called Whiskey. You can click over there if it's up yet to watch that analysis. If you haven't checked out my analysis for episode 1 yet, go back and watch that. It explains why this show is so freaking obsessed with doors and windows and glass. I've been Philip Molina. Let's do it. On to the next one.